please make your mind very clear with the motivation to listen to this Dharma teaching for the sake of all mother sentient beings, infinite as space, and to be able to do whatever it takes to achieve the perfect and highest state of supreme awakening, Buddhahood, for the sake of those beings. And so today, and with the Dharma that we're listening to and explaining today, then we have within the overall section of establishing reality, then the stages of establishing reality, then within that we have the need for being able to identify the object to be negated, and then we have the, go up to the first top of the chapter. So identifying the object to be negated by reason. Oh, here we go. Okay, why the object of negation must be carefully identified, refuting other systems that refute without identifying the object to be negated, and how our system identifies the object of negation. So here we have why the object, so now we're in the section of refuting other systems that refute without identifying the object to be negated. And so today, because of the preparations needed for tomorrow's long life puja and prayers for Kensho Rinpoche, we're going to only have an hour-long session, an hour-long class. So within an hour, we're going to end the class today.
다 가정 외마 심보 시루가 바세들 다디마 가정 외마 심보 고비 시루가 발라니 가정 외진 아니 하정 캡체와 가바당 아니 가정 외진 캡충와 가바오스 다 섭진니就是점수와 어디 아니 다 가자 아니 캡체와 당 가자 캡충와 세디다 가스나 가정 디 강라디 송아레스 아니 가자디 아니 외심바디 개치마레 개체를 해서 이제 공회 마시나 아니 다다다 체달을 흥그레스니 가진 아니 디콩라 송소와 인도자니 다 가져를 봐 마신바 세게더니 아 가자 공회 마신이 원게 양 가자 탑체와도 직 다양 가자디 양 공회 마신이 원게 레바 공회 마신이 원게 양 가자디 양 탑충의 견식 니 아니 제르미제르와 좀 몰라 정말 좀 앞에 고니 아니 벽이 나라더니 이마 개방가마 된적이다 아 갈라로 우마바 코랑 우마바 인세와 된적이더니 우미기 되니 릭베기 각자디 아니 된적이다 로바디데 체르스 이자티 다 고난족이 숭에 대해 산지기 숭라 쿵뚱이 숭고할때 이네티 아니마 지 대시자 모두 원기 된적이다 아 교회에서 다 제르미지기 된다 디니마 다 된소 견조레레 니마 세시치는 딜라 가바 답디 미지비 군센다 제바디니마 독수는 송고어레스.
So the first section here within, so now we're on page 127, and that's, so again, the outline starts on page 126 with B, refuting other systems that refute without identifying the object to be negated. Within that, two parts, refuting an overly broad identification of the object to be negated, and refuting an overly restricted identification of the object to be negated. And so starting with page 127, what we have is what was discussed in the prior class, where we went over the earlier sections above this, that there's these two different possibilities when we're trying to identify the object to be negated, that it could be an overly broad identification or an overly restricted or under, let's see, restricted or too small identification of the object to be negated. It's too limited. And so within those two, what happens is, or because why do those two happen is it's because of the reason of not identifying perfectly the object to be negated. So when we don't have a very clear identification of it, then we get these two different possibilities, which are end up making us fall into either the extreme of permanence or the extreme of annihilation. And so those are the two extremes that come as a result of not properly identifying the object of negation. And so then we look at now what these different actual proponents of Madhyamaka who came before J Rinpoche, before Tsongkhapa in Tibet, and they had these different assertions which do meet back to the Buddhist word. They use the Buddhist word as their source, but they still proper reasoning and identifying the object of negation. And so now there will be an explanation of their views and why they're and refuting them, why they're wrong.
어두체 다 당보스 가정의 의진 하정 찹체와 가발라 니 되바 줘바다 데미데바 템바우스 당보니스 대답 의미 되 아마 되바 팔모체 나리스 깨와라 소바 대 코나니 마줍주비 리베니스 숭네 남쟁이 발기 최담제 제바인데스 진짜식 케랑발랑 리베 제바체나 다스바 뒤자면 매비 치당 유메라 소바 무시보 탐제 까베나 델마두비 취메비 치르고 다 독신이다 다딘 가르송거스나 다딘다 우마바 인식에로와 다 정글라마 종가바 춤보초 마페 공국글라다 나라바다 지 개와 몽부다 우마라 개바 인생의 몽부 중요해 코나족에다 대시 잡장딘나다 대시 따와라와 다 우메기 따와지로 우마 탄주비 따와 타도되는 대시 아니 배 코나 우마바 인라워데 따와 샤단데 때지 때니 가장 왜 맞으면 온게 교연 댄스인데 몽부지 되는 거로 왔다 딘즈선에 다 균센데 송도와 우미 되면 되바 파모지 나리에서 담 딘데 가시기 딘데 다 딘냐라다 가서는 용자신이다 정말로 뭐 정보바 친구 마페 공기다 따와 마티시 장인 능라스 아니 깨와라 소바 태코는 유두마 두지고 리비 손에 남제기 벌겠지 다 가자디 가서는 손에 남제기 벌기 최담제 아니 우미직 벌기 가자레스 다 가자 찹체와디 가서는 오늘은 랑싱 두바 랑은 두바 딘데지라 시와르데 건조 제시 디 마자와치 손에 남제기 벌기 최탐제 당다 최담제 아니 덴바 두마두 쳬바 랑싱 두바 마두 쳬긴 우미직바 다직바ян다로 어디기 까이게 가자디레스 다디 임비 균생 가지레스나 진짜시 켈라나 직베 쳬바체나 다수 뒤자 메베체 다바 다든 쳬연디 아니 니에민도 다 니에메와인상 아니 계속 강가 가자레 스노다데 디 가자시나 디고와 마르데이나 고나주 가자레스 다 임비 균생 가스나 유메라소바 무시보 탐제 까네 대마두비 취미비시로 신주전에 다 코나주 콩데 가왔던 것은 돌아 콩도니로 좀 nen데 이것은 아니 최담지 유바다 메바다 유메 니가다 니가 많이 봐 무시나나 뉴요레스 책지요레 와 유메 미미 니가 미 니기 다니 민바미 다시 넘버 저발레 티니 우마바이리 신 도유 값으로 와좀 nen데 다 책딘데지요레 유바 마레 메바 마레 니가 마 유바 니가 많이 봐 마레 니가 많이 봐 마레스 어디는 다시 까와 다시디 어디 디가와디 제시 자마투 원게 다 최담지 유엘람나 지금인도스 메람나 지금인도스 유미 니가 인스나 지금인도 니가 많이 받는 어디 딘나라 마두비 최메완사 두조 강가 우메직베 까바레 신들와 다시 넘버 조발레 티닌 우마바이 릭스는다 좀네 도이값도 디송하러와 다나신 유제 자와 딱바고 메제 자와니 제바도 센 디니다 제 우미람 모습니다 좀네데기로 왔다 도이값도 딘제기다 송해요 다 디식디라 제 룽디라 콩동니 제시 아니 록바딘데 리고 다 식신나시다 제름지게다 딜라식디 베디시 양다바 뻬와디 원을 되는거라다 건주고 콩디 대도와리 유멜라서 뭐 무시보 탐지 까베나 데르마두비 최메비치 신두산에 우메릭바기 유바양 유바디안 까고레 메바디안 까고레 유민니가 데 까고레 유니가 마이베 다 시가 어다 까바레스는 송샤스 까윤디 다 최담지 아니 까바디 고도 어다 윤생 군수 콩디라 똥니 다 까당 가르스나 똥니 똑비 똥니 주비지로 왔다 똥 세저로 왔다 장신의 주비 똥와 똥바니스 똥세기 똥에게 가자디 답에 찹침부 쇼지 최 담제 아니 돈이 주비 리바 되게 되니 가에게 최들이스 딜라도 이미 균생 가르스나 아니 우미 리바게 디 타시부 강가 까바르스는 좀 내데 송도 왔어 너와 유메라서 무시부 탐제 까베나스 디 까바디 가선 도이나 까샤스 까비 치디 디른다 디나 고에머데 다든다 당연히 신고 신다든나 고여와 유미 미미 니가 니기 당니 민바민 다시 넘버 데왈 디니 우마바이스 니 자신 나라 우마 자와셔 나라와 유제 자와 딱바다 메제 자와 제바다 디안르와 아니 다시 넘버 데왈 디니 우마바이스 칙 디자오지르와 오다 다고 고물루기 송에게 칙디당 좀년되게 송에 칙들 제시 자마투 온기 다 따와텔라 파면되더니 각자디 배 캡치무 쇼지 최담제기다 최담제 다시 날 유바나라 디와리 야나 메바나 디와리 야나 디나라 디나라 마루 최면상 딘소 우미릭바게 까바레스는 송샤스 인도전에 다 돈이 돈이 주비로와 덴바 두마두 주비릭바디기 아니 최담제 까르야 인도전에 최담제 되니 각자 샤고도 쓴다 각자 캡체와 되기 어다 딘데스니다 제시 어디 균진 찍디는다 한국도
So then we'll begin with the section where we have two parts, stating others' assertions and showing that those assertions are wrong. A, stating others' assertions. Most of those who today claim to teach the meaning of Madhyamaka say that all phenomena ranging from forms through omniscient consciousness are refuted by rational analysis of whether production and such exist as their own reality, or simply exist as reality. When for one reason analyzes anything that is put forward, there is not even a particle that can withstand analysis. Also, all four possible ways that something could be produced as an existent effect, a non-existent effect, and so forth are refuted, and there is nothing that is not included in those four. So then what's happening, what Rinpoche is saying is expressing the views of some other proponents, people who claim to be proponents of Madhyamaka. You know, they say, following the Garjuna and the great middle way philosophers, Madhyamaka philosophers, that this is the Madhyamaka Prasangika view, the middle way consequentialist view. And even though they say that, they're actually having this wrong view of the object of negation here. And so what is, so even though that they're sort of renowned within the culture, the Tibetan society as being Madhyamaka, then Je Rinpoche, the great guide Je Rinpoche, the great protector Je Rinpoche, is saying that they actually didn't have the right identification of the object of negation. And it's because what they identify as the object of negation is all phenomena ranging from forms through omniscient consciousness. So they, instead of limiting or identifying properly the object of negation to be the existence within nature, or establishment by nature, or establishment of truth, true establishment, then instead they actually say that because when you go and look for the object that is labeled by the expressions and terms, the designated object, and you don't find it, that means the object becomes the object of negation. The object that you don't find is the object of negation. So what's the source for this is because they say that the Buddha himself explained this. And so where did the Buddha explain this? Because in the sutras where there's the quote where the Buddha says, and I don't have the exact quote, but it's not in the text, but Genla said it, it's stated in another text by Je Rinpoche called The Essence of Eloquence, of distinguishing the definitive and the provisional. And so that quote says something to the gist of, it's not existent, it's not non-existent, it's not both existent and non-existent, it's not neither existent nor non-existent. Those who, this is the view of the middle way, or this is suitable as the view of the middle way, something to that effect. And then also on top of that, Nagarjuna within the text of the Fundamental Wisdom of the Middle Way said something very similar line, which I also don't have the exact verse, but a very similar sentiment there. And so because of that, then it ends up that the view of the middle way for these people who, you know, who are using that as their source and thinking that all phenomena are negated, then they say that, well, with this reasoning that was given by the Buddha as well as by Nagarjuna, it actually negates all phenomena. So that's how they end up sort of interpreting this verse and this explanation of the middle way. And because they think that, well, there's no phenomena, you know, when you have those four, those are here it said the four possible ways, right? These four sort of the four bounds or possibilities, the four, you know, extent, you know, the possible extents of how phenomena could exist is, you know, existent, non-existent, both existent and non-existent, and neither existent nor non-existent. Those are all negated by the Buddha. There's nothing that could be included. There's nothing whatsoever that's not included within those four possible bounds of possibility. And so that ends up negating all phenomena. And so when we talk about then empty, what is the meaning of the phrase, of the word empty and emptiness? All phenomena are empty of inherent establishment. So when we say empty, then they're not saying that all phenomena are empty of inherent establishment. All phenomena are empty of establishment from a nature, but they're saying all phenomena are so there's, instead of saying that the meaning of empty is empty of establishment with a nature, they're saying the meaning of empty is all phenomena being empty or being negated. So they're saying that the very reasoning, which is analyzing whether or not things are established as true, actually negates phenomena themselves, all phenomena from formed through omniscient consciousness.
다 준세 니와 갈스나 다 갈송하르스나 다 손에 남제 바게 최담지 당하도 깨발라 소비르와다 최담지 아니 가스나 파비냠샤 이식게 되니르와 아니 가스나 다 마시바레스 마시바디 준세인데 가스나 남주다 땡중 가소 세저와다 마게 가바메바 깨메바 체바메바 따메바 호아메바 조메바스니 다 가바메바 깨와메바드는 체바메바 호아메바스니 다 땡중 가소 제송여와 도에 가소 디 공부루기 최저 갑돌라와 디 송여와 인도선 디 가소 돈용 웃음도 또비 파비냠 로바 파비냠 샤이시디기 아니 로와 두지기 춘도 디올라지니 깨와디 요마레 냠샤이시게 송올라 가바디 요마르신다 깨가라 소바다 딘데기다 게메바 송어와 다 송와 나신 파비냠샤 이식이 아니 된다와디 아니 가리래 파비냠샤 이식으로 메바 시바레스 제가 소와 제메바 시바나스다 시바디다 슝나 송와디 도당 땡준이군다 나라 송와 니가 거의 시기 쿵잖네 아니 다 파비냠샤 이식이 되는 대다 마시바 인상 파비냠샤 이식이 메바 시바 다 거의 대 샤워다 인급에 깨와서 매도 소다 단서 법인 염샤식이 마시바 인상 마스는 매고도 다 준세로와 돈용고술도 또비 로바 법인 염샤시디 동반이다 지지도 냠바시 염샤시로와 다 군조비 최세요 말아 마시디 다 수소 군조비 최로와 깨와다 가바다 징바다 조발라 소베다 타님이 나서 준소 냠샤시기 마시바 인상 마시바 준세 다가란 게 매바시샤 스코란 게 두버 다 법인 염샤시기 매바시바 인상 파비냠샤이시 메바스나 무빈네술라 인고레 인도산이 손에 남제기 바지 최담지 아니 메바샤고레스 로와 오다 준세니바디 독순 주봉도 독순
Okay, continuing the next paragraph. Moreover, these persons assert that a noble being, sublime wisdom, which perceives reality, perceives production, cessation, bondage, freedom, and so forth is not existing in the least. Therefore, since things must be just as the sublime wisdom knows them, production and such do not exist. Now, this is the presentation of the second reason that's given by these previous scholars, previous to J. Rinpoche. And so this is because when they take all these phenomena from forms all the way through omniscient consciousness, then they see that they are not observed by the, what's it called here, the Aryas, does it say Arya? Noble being. So noble being sometimes is called an Arya, but here it says a noble being, sublime wisdom. So it's not seen by the noble being's sublime wisdom, which is the wisdom realizing emptiness directly in the continuum of a training being, someone who is training. So because of that, then you have so then we have this expression or verse of homage from Nagarjuna in his Fundamental Wisdom of the Middle Way, where he says, not, again, giving these 8 negations, right? These 8 negations of dependent arising. So not no cessation, no arising, no extinction, no permanence, not different, not one. So those are the 8. And so, not coming, not going, not different, not one. So he negates all of those. So because, again, they're using these sources of both the Buddha from the sutras as well as the treatises of Nagarjuna to see how all these things are negated by Nagarjuna and the Buddha. And there's also a verse that says explicitly that this sublime or noble being, sublime wisdom that perceives reality, and which is directly perceiving emptiness, since it does not observe, it does not see any phenomena other than emptiness, does not see the phenomena from form through omniscient consciousness. And so because it does not see them, then what these people these scholars said, is that it sees them to not exist. Since it doesn't see them, then they must not exist. That was the conclusion they drew. And so this is true that the wisdom, it's stated clearly in the sutras and treatises that this wisdom, noble being, sublime wisdom of the learners only sees ultimate truth. It doesn't see any conventional phenomena. So then these people say, well, because that's how this wisdom sees things, and this wisdom, it must be what it sees has to be in line with reality. That has to be the truth. That has to be the reality. So then they say, because it doesn't see these things, then, as it says, since things must be just as the sublime wisdom knows them, production and such do not exist. So that's their reasoning. So.
다 디오더라 준전 숨바 활성시에서나 디오라 카데 깨와라 소바 되나 데라 디니 쮸베 직베 쮸세다 미세 쇠나니 직베 쮸세게 응어보유베 땡외스 주로스 쮸 미세는 직바 책베 된 유바치더 테스 다양 다 준전 숨바 고아레 가스나 손에 남제바게 쮸담제 우메 직바게 와다 또니 주베 직바디기 와 템바 둠마주 쮸지게 직바게 까바디 준전스나 어디 Geshe magaba inasu wore ta kewala sobe ta chödunzo tini rwa kunzobi chönam ani tonyu tobe jibadigi rwa tonyu tobe jibadigi che suguri sugumare takba niche rwa yona Geshe yona che subada misuba kanu shagodo rwa che sönani ani gari charsna ani ribe che sugu ngobo yube dengwesu jurosna ani dendebe tonyu tobe jishe yangda ngoro yuwa insan temba jubi ngobo chadugudu 와 템바투와 차기도 디니 요마르와스 로 우미리베 가에게 템바투 ngobo 가고르와스 게시 우미리베 쳔미스나 아니 리베 디니 쳔비 되베 치다르테다 우미리베게 디니 쳔미스나 아니 고리 우미리베 가베 준생게 쳔미스바 레모도지게 아니 우미리베 마가와이나 컨디션 쳔미스바 차기레스 인도자네다 준생 틸라티니 아니 우미릭박이 취담제 아니 우미릭박이 가자 레샤서 준신 찍디 장도 어디
So now the third reason that's given by these former scholars, when we assert that production and such do exist, let me start over. So when we assert that production and such do exist, these persons ask, are these capable of withstanding rational analysis of their reality? If so, then there would be things that can withstand rational analysis, and thus there would be truly existent things. If not, then how is it possible for something that has been rationally refuted to exist? So this is the third reason given that's cited here that was given by these former scholars that they used to show that all phenomena from forms through omniscient consciousness are negated by the reasoning of the middle way. So because of this reasoning establishing emptiness, this reasoning which is analyzing whether things are truly established or not, and they look at that reasoning and then ask, well, then are these phenomena able to withstand that analysis or not? Are they able to withstand that reasoning or not? So then they would say if they're able to withstand the reasoning, then the reason, if they're able to withstand the reasoning, then this proof or this reasoning to negate true establishment hasn't actually negated anything because they're able to withstand the analysis. And then if they're and then there would be truly existent things. And then they say if it's not able to withstand the analysis with this reasoning of the middle way, then that means that they've been negated. So they're saying that all these phenomena, notwithstanding the analysis of the middle way, which is the analysis establishing emptiness, analyzing whether things are truly established or not. Since if things are not able to withstand that analysis, it means that those things have been negated themselves, those phenomena. So that's their reasoning.
어두체 다 디와라 디신도 깨와라 소바 여바 되나 체메 둠마주 체메 두바 마주체 당보다나 대권나 니스비 이시기스 깨와 메바 시베 대주바 미텔하스 다 가스나 깨와라 소바드니 다 체메 두바레 마주바레스다 계속 요나 체메나 체메 두바야나 마주바다 디나라 깨지시고 체메 둠니 요나 아니 체마딜라 아니 팍비 체마당 아니 너와 당선하지 타니비 체마스는 다가서는 소지 체마니셨네 다 도르서드나 타두 조직이 체마지당 타니 조직이 체마니샤니와 체메 두라와이나 타두 조직이 체메 두바이남 타니비 조직이 체메 두바이스 타두 그 전적인 돈유도 조직이 체메 두스는 되게 말와스 대 안반텐데베 태권은 니스비 이시기 되네 깨와메바 시바 대두바 미텔라스 다 냠샤 이시기 싱월 아니 군주비 최요 말이스 군주비 최도 돈용고숨도 또 냠샤 이시 싱월 메바 인상 그 메바 시바레스 인자 아파비 냠샤 이시기 시기요 말와 세메 두스 세마디 돈유 또베드니 냠샤 이시기 시나 디기민도 와스 와 디인상 아디니 세마 두스 직 디기민도 제오다 디스 직 디체
When we, next verse, next paragraph. Similarly, when we hold that production and such exist, these persons ask, does valid cognition establish them? If we claim that it does, they reply that since the sublime wisdom perceiving reality perceives production as non-existent, it is impossible for that wisdom to establish production. So then there's the next question that comes up. So we look at these phenomena like arising and so on, production and so on. Production and arising just being different translation terms for kewa. So then the question is, are they established by a valid cognition or a pramana? Are they established by a validly knowing mind? And so then, well, we have two kinds of validly knowing minds. So then first they ask about each of them individually. So the two kinds are validly knowing mind of the Arya's sublime wisdom, which is realizing emptiness. And then there's the valid sublime minds of the sort of ordinary perception, which we could also call the final, let's see, the valid cognitions that are making analysis of the final nature, or valid cognitions which are making analysis of conventionalities. So those are the two kinds of analysis and of valid minds which are analyzing. So because they take then the first question and look at the sublime wisdom perceiving reality. So the sublime wisdom perceiving reality, in its perspective, then no phenomena are seen. None of these phenomena of production and so forth are seen. And so because of that, then they would have to say that then that wisdom does not establish production. So it only sees emptiness. It doesn't see any of these other phenomena. So then they're not established by this sublime wisdom.
Oh yeah. Tati wala. Tani be Michela sobe juba donani teda tsema ima kabichir. Teda jubje tsema mitedes tingi ze jaboles. Mida nawa naya tsema mine. Chedan lyudan yija tsema mines. Kade ongbo dida tsena pabelam ji sula jishik chas. Shedang juba yang namgun jikden tsemi she sumbichir. Tadi gasna 다 탈두기 쳔 다 마주바 균세 강하셔서 다 탄입이 탄입이 쳔에 되니 마주바가서 탄입이 쳔마데 쳔마 말을 탄입이 미셸라 소바데다 아니 쳔마이 바디 도이값을 가샤스 간데스나 띵에지 잡고 도나와 줌네 산지 줌네 되게 띵에지 잡고서 도디노나 안 미다 나와나야 쳔마민스와 아니 미기 쳔마다 나외 쳔마다 가서나 왕시가 여러 왕시 옹부시방가기 뒤져야 쳔마 말에스 유자지 쳔마 말에스 다나시 이게 안 넘바시바 여러 뒤져야 쳔마 말에스 뒤져 아니 남시 미기 넘바시바니 아니 류기 넘바시바 뒤져라 이기 넘바시바도 뒤져그 수소 유튜브 자지기 되는 남시 두주 쳔마 말에스 송도와스 가시 쳔마이나 아니 파비냠샤이시 고바 요 말에스 가데 옹보디다 체이나 파벨람기 수라 지시자스 근데 송은서 다 탄입이 체마디 체마 많이 봐 송은서 탄입이 체메 줍니 탄입이 최도 탄입이 체메 줍선데 지금도 미디데 대다 체마 디 줍지기를 로도 체마 많이 봐데 도나라 송비 지르스 디마세 빠네다와 잡이장 우마 주반나라와 안남군 직된 세민스로와다 직된 세민 자기 말에 쓴다 딘드스니 송아인상 다 디치가 되는다 배우가 된다 병아라바도 저기로 돈 얘기 아니 가자 돈 유튜브식 그 가자 된 거에 말씀하면서 다 균생 관한게도 쓴다 공돈이 이제 lokpatin lego re o indusen da junsen chik dire so wata seme tadu ge seme rumundu tanye ge seme rumundu maduba insan ani madubi junsen khungde lungla tuk wa ti insan ani teda yoba sha tumindu so junsen tuksun sungudu so.
And so now they look at the second option of those different kinds of valid cognition. Further, if we argue that production is established by conventional visual consciousnesses and such, they reply that it is impossible for such conventional consciousnesses to be valid cognitions that establish production, because scriptural sources refute the claim that those conventional consciousnesses are valid cognitions. The King of Concentration Sutra says, the eye, ear, and nose consciousnesses are not valid cognitions. The tongue, body, and mental consciousnesses are also not valid cognitions. If these sensory consciousnesses were valid cognitions, of what use to anyone would be the noble being's path be? Also, Chandrakirti's commentary on the Middle Way says, the world is not valid in any way. They argue that we cannot say that production exists without valid establishment, for we ourselves do not assert this, and it is not reasonable. So now this is giving an analysis of that possibility. So they just in the sentences above negated that the ultimate analysis or the final, the valid cognition making a final analysis, they negated that has any ability to establish production and so forth. So now looking at the valid cognitions of convention, so conventional valid consciousnesses. So when they look at those, they say, well, look, right in the sutras itself, and they use the source here as the King of Concentration Sutras, it said that those are all not valid cognitions. It's the quote is right there. The eye, ear, and nose consciousnesses are not valid cognitions. So first going through the 5 sense consciousnesses and saying they're not valid cognitions, also then including the mental consciousness. So that's all the 6 consciousnesses. None of them are valid cognitions, these conventional consciousnesses. So they're not consciousnesses that are able to comprehend their objects. They're not valid cognitions which accurately comprehend their objects. And so that means they're not valid cognitions. And if they were valid cognitions, then what would even be the point of having the noble being sublime wisdom? So that's what the last line says. Of what use, if these sensory consciousnesses were valid cognitions, of what use to anyone would the noble being's path be? So we wouldn't need this, sublime wisdom of the noble beings. And so then there's the quote from also Chandakirti. So Chandakirti has a line in his commentary in the middle way: the world is not valid in any way. And so because of these different quotes that come from the text, then these former scholars, they give a misconceived explanation. They give a misdirected explanation of the meaning of these verses and lines, and they give an erroneous explanation because of in dependence on these sources. So they are using sources, but they just understand and explain them improperly. These.
Yeah, that deal. Chenmo matubjang yoba deba ni rangyang midujing rikbayang mimbe mitedo sta ta dege takba cherwa den chenmo dumni yoda matuba yo segeji shin chenmo duba dela takba ni ga ta chenmo matuba yoba sina ta chenmo matubja yo lamna anti charang ye degu mare sta dina di kasna da ngaraba druwata tigi da da chenmo matubi yobaji choran chering mare kasna 아니 최담제 오늘 가리래 여바 드니 나라 여바 말이 매바 말이 좀 된데 송화디 제나를 와서 두시네 여바야 아로와 여바 되바니 라야 미되라 다 리바야 미베스 다디 되게 말이스 로와 처음에 마주비 여바지 요 말이스 디네 인상 다 미베 미테도 수다 가서는 어다 진다디 소소 군주비 최든소 아니 가리래 여바인 세대 탱이면도 미티비 균센데 오다 도신다 균센 숨바 다른데 시바디로 와 오다 디네스는 균센 당하는도
올라 저지 가기래라고 그래.
근데 디시절 사이바
세미만 두간 버더니
세메 마두장 여바 되나니 라야 미되징 리바야 미테도 세디다 되게 딱바 제사라 강라 와 세메 둠니 요래 마두바 요래
세메
마두는 요라는 지금 말해 세메 마두비 요가
요람나 되게 말했어.
어디 균제
Okay, so then the next this is the last sentence of the paragraph read before. So they argue that we cannot say that production exists without valid establishment, for we ourselves do not assert this, and it is not reasonable. And again, then the konzogi lamkin sure.
인다 표현하라 받는다디 인다 손에 넘기 바게 최담지 각자 레라로와 각자 마이나 아니 딘다 저라 요라고 요나 치매 둠니 요래 치매 마주바 요래스니 왔다 디코이기디 어디 각자 딘다 캡처 되게 루디기 디시디 자워
네. so then this is their kind of final statement about all the analysis that was cited above from these previous scholars that came before J. Rinpoche, that they say, so okay, we just went through and determined that all these conventional phenomena like production and so forth are not established by valid cognitions. So then we couldn't say that they exist. They're not established by valid cognitions. That's not reasonable to say. That's not the assertion that we give. So this is sort of just the concluding sentence. Kena danda jiwa jilen jena ni
What the do?
ngas chela.
Yeah.
Mutune china digre kenyang chakama ngas.
Yeah, that did. Yeah, that in the current Japsarwa. That is or the shower, what that is that in the drink in the Geshe, and it died to what children, down roaches or the Labashidam.
So then, since the time is shortened, then we'll leave the text for today, and then we have time for Q&A if anyone has any questions.
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead, Ron.
Can I go ahead?
Yes.
Okay, so all the things we just mentioned, Chandakirti and the King of Concentration Sutra, and what the noble, wise Aryats say, we keep referring to them as they are negating the existence of phenomena. Therefore, phenomena doesn't exist. But we never explain the rationale that all those sources that were just listed, we never explain how Chandarkit his thinking and the thinking that's conveying the King of Concentration Sutta and Chandarkirti and in the fundamental wisdom of the middle way, and all the wise noblemen. We just say, well, the wise nobleman doesn't think so, therefore it's not. It cannot be valid, because if there was valid, then the noble wise sages wouldn't think so. In other words, we're going in a circular logic without explaining how they explain.
Yeah, I think I get the question. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for your question. Again, danda di kapsu ani ngarapa de sogi kungmambutan shas ani umatsawi shara tong produn tawa trava tong ani tingi zingabudola soba ani chetong pabe yamsha yeshegi zigwala kanda zigi yime that's some Geshe and a young Shun Karangi Zebabo deso and Sanki Chumden dong Belden Tower Trapper on Gombo Ludub Konsogi Ripa. That's all Jangmendu, that's all Kermendu. Chezong Bungara Pigi Chik Taran Chik Chetam Shit and the same Majubaris, Chetam Chik Gakwaris, like the Kung Drangamato Kung Jibe using Dambone, right? The Lung that's so Ripa Kanga and the Jiba Zebaris Dambone. Nediko Yomaris, any chick, Ponzo chick, Ripa Dalang, Kora Gabnet Jogre Mato, Ponzo Nunijana, the Tambogi Ripe Jutang, Combo Luduki Ripe Jutang, Southern Jabba Ripe Jutum, Goyomaris, any Gaijani, and the Chikung Gangang Drang to us and young Ripa, Drangim into us.
That in the Dirwada Gacha, the Mus, Sandy, Dinikas, and Riba Yandala, the Mus, Singores, cousin Yapsaso. Riba Yandala, Mademba, Lunzam Latini, Chuaina, that take you in the water. Roapim, Narabanana, Dini, Riba Yandagitella Mapoache, Lungle Sunshas, and Tishi Shagi, Tony, Nisun and Namjek Baget, Chetamje, Umiribe Cabares, or the Kundines, Troenza, that did Ribam, Jeremy Jikas, and Riba Yandala Tuni, the Shindachimbo Gumudan, Konazu Shuna Tene. Riba Yandala tin tela Pagua, that Riba Yandala tela Mapaje, Lunzamgi, going to see Jawai, no, that control the Negi Lopa, the Shilopa, and the Negi Toba Ligores, 근데 전에 제르미지게다 디 아니 되게 말이 리바인다 디 제라다 리베고니 바까요리와 디 룽기 숭아 나시 다치시 뭐 말레스 아 콘족을 다치시 바 시에네디니 숭네 남제 바게 쳐도 우미리 바까바디 룽라 때니 숭거다 제르미지게 룽라 때니 말레스 리바인다 디네르도 아드니 제 고물로 혼나서 슝기드니 마르반조드니 모베네스로 튀마 어디네스네 대시 자와레스 근데 전에 병아라 베게 다 줌는 디 룽조 진이 숭아인서 교인들이 차와레스 어디랍다.
So that's exactly what's happening, is that as was explained before in the previous classes, in the previous sections of the text, that to really identify the object of negation, then you have to do it on the basis of flawless reasoning. And you have to really be able to set your kind of theory or your understanding of the object of negation based on flawless reasoning. If you just do it through citing sources and citing quotations alone, then there's many faults and flaws in the thinking that will arise. So these kinds of erroneous explanations come from that. And so that's why we have to use the flawless reasoning, which J. Rinpoche is going to use as the text progresses, and to show that, well, yes, these quotations are there, but they're not literal. The meaning of them you have to establish, with flawless reasoning. And so what happened with these previous scholars of Tibet was that they just sort of assumed they were meant literally. They were meant to be taken literally, but J. Rinpoche shows through reasoning that that's not the case. So that's right. If you do just take the quotes, then you're going to have an erroneous explanation and an erroneous understanding. So J. Rinpoche gives the reasoning that aligns with reality.
So we didn't study yet the flawless reasoning.
No, not yet. No. That comes. There's still several hundred. There's well over 100 pages left to go. So don't worry.
Okay. So in other words, so far we have to believe what the noble, wise beings are saying. We have to take their word for it until we learn about the flawless reasoning.
No. Diles. Any chitang da rigbe yangdak that so tanda bardu not so shunang a lebi omaroas turn omaroas chezang so chik pabe that so garesung masung so tanda neka kelengores rigbe that so majang bardu pabe gilabia that so kelengoroas
디 켈링 말했어요. 리바디 유열에 리바디 진짜 배제 시에도 녀를 대시 맞아라 모두 리바 유열 바로와 인자 리바다 개와 있나 아니 룽기 숭와 있는 디 다치시마 말했어.
No, that's not the case. We don't have to just accept what the noble beings say. No, the reasons are there. The reasoning is there, just because we haven't gotten to it yet in the text. So we still, we can't just accept whatever said in a quotation or in a text without analyzing it with reasoning. So we still have to, use reasoning to see if it's true or not.
강대 무시페딩아 저기 셰랍닝비날 후메초 가서 또만이 후후풀이 또만 셰마이 페디 디파 저너 디유나 간데 디데 대화를 지으면은 무시
The question is
무시 디단 저너 지고 말해 진짜디 여바 마인 메바 마인 유메니가 마인 무시디레 여바 마인 세저와 메바 마인지 유메니가 마인 니가 마인바 마인 스티시디 다 파게 디 다기 말했어. 딘데로지 인다 디타시디 로가리. 인다 가스네 여바 마인 메바 마인 도나나 손다 여바 마인 세 타지 메바 마인 비타 메베 타지 메바 마인 비타지 니가 임비 타지 니가 마인 비타 어디 타시디레. 인다 디타시나나 어디 도이나 순족이 책디레.
So then the questioner was asking if when we talk about the four possible ways that are cited in the first paragraph of this section, then is it reasonable to explain the four possible ways as being the four that are mentioned at the beginning of the Heart Sutra, where Arya Avalokiteshvara says, form is emptiness, emptiness also is form, emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. And so the answer is that no, that's a different, that phrase of the 4 possible ways does not refer to those 4 in the Heart Sutra. It only refers to the 4 possible ways that something could be, which are existent, non-existent, both existent and non-existent, or neither existent nor non-existent. So that's what the 4 possible ways refers to. And so today we'll leave the class here.
Sanje Shindo Minde Puwa Yin Jogu Namda Shinla Cheba Yedam Guru Rana Mendala Ganyan Daya Mi Kangre Ravi Kowe Shingamansu Pendang Dewa Maru Jui Chere Siwan Tenzin Jazo Yin Shabe Sidi Pa Tenjuru Ji Kaden Duji Kamsu Chile Ju Topju Tabi Lungdo Jez Lose Namla Rilam Dumi De Lamden Jewe Shegi Sowa De Changju Simjo Ringu Maje Bana Jeju Ji Jewa Nyamba Meba Kone Kondo Pewa Sho Tazi Negu Sewe Mij Samo Tende Tadang Tawe Lama Paju Luju Yapse Gomba Jijin Kondo Zube Gyoru Ngo Kewa Di Kewo Gun Sonama Ishi Sonama Ishi Lejongwe Tamba Kuni Doba Sho. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
도체나.
Thank you.
Good night, Geshe Kalsang.
Thank you.